Hi everyone, welcome to today's panel event. Just wait a few more seconds in case people are having any connection troubles or trying to join, and then we'll get started. I should also just let you know, for those who are joining and wondering why I'm here when you're expecting to see Angel, unfortunately she's not been able to make it today, so I've stepped in as a last minute host, so just to explain. Great, then I think we can get started. It's 2 minutes past 4, so we can kick off. So welcome everyone. This is our final Fairtrade Fortnight event of the 2 weeks that we've had, and what a fantastic note to go out on. So thank you so much to everyone who's joined across the last 2 weeks, and thank you for joining our final one. This one is with Tony's Chocolonely. We're delighted to be in partnership for this one as we delve into the issues surrounding the cocoa supply chain. As mentioned, but in case anyone missed it because they've just joined, unfortunately the host Angel was unable to make it today, so I am stepping in on her behalf. My name's Anna Barker. I'm head of responsible business at the Fairtrade Foundation. I've been with Fairtrade for 4 years, and during that time I have actually been lucky enough to make it out to Côte d'Ivoire and to visit cocoa farmers twice. So I've been able to see firsthand what the challenges are for cocoa farmers, and also what the differences that fair trade sourcing makes, and that partners like Tony's Chocolonely, the impact they're able to have by sourcing fair trade cocoa and all the initiatives that they run. So that's exactly what we wanted to talk about today with all of you. And as we celebrate Fairtrade Fortnight, we really wanted to dig into the key issues concerning inequality within the cocoa supply chain. Because chocolate is our favorite treat, we all love to consume it, but we don't necessarily all know what it means to choose ethical chocolate. And we really want to be able to explain that and bring that to life for you. We'll be doing that through our fantastic panel. So I'm delighted to introduce you to Deborah. Deborah is a registered youth cocoa farmer and a lead trainer of Asonafo North Cooperative Cocoa Farmers and Marketing Union in Ghana. On top of that, Deborah is also the Livelihood Development Officer of the union, leading on the monitoring and evaluation team. And in addition to that, Deborah is a regional representative of the Fairtrade Africa Youth Convention. So a very busy lady, Deborah. Welcome. It's fantastic to have you joining us from Ghana.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here today.
Brilliant. Next up, I would like to warmly welcome Nicola Matthews to our panel this afternoon. Nicola's official title is Countess of Cocoa at everyone's new favorite chocolate brand, Tony's Chocolonely. With 10 years of experience within marketing and innovation, Nicola now leads Tony's UK and Ireland marketing efforts on their mission to make slave-free chocolate the norm.
Hi, everyone.
Finally, we have the wonderful David Finlay, who I'm lucky enough to work with, but for those of you who aren't, he's our senior supply chain manager at the Fairtrade Foundation, focusing on cocoa. David focuses on working with businesses who source Fairtrade cocoa to understand the impact that this has on supply chain networks, while supporting businesses to invest into farmer-facing programs. So a very important job. And welcome, David.
Thanks so much, Anna. Happy Friday, everyone. Great to be with you.
Brilliant. And just before we start the event, I just wanted to remind you all as our audience that all of our online events have been free during Fairtrade Fortnight. Anyone can attend and catch up on demand. There's a link on our website if you missed anything and would like to hear back on it. If, however, you are feeling compelled to contribute towards the movement and the work that we are doing, particularly for farmers and workers on the front line of the climate crisis, you are welcome to donate. You can scan the QR code on your screen, or you can visit the Fairtrade website, and all donations are welcome. So today's event, what to expect. We will be testing how much you know about some of the issues behind the cocoa that goes into chocolate. We will be uncovering some of the harsh realities cocoa farmers face, and we'll discuss what you can do to support the mission of Tony's and Fairtrade to rebalance the inequalities within the cocoa supply chain. So to kickstart, we're going to find out how much you already know about cocoa. So you can feel free to vote for your answer in the poll that should now be appearing for you on YouTube. And the question is, how much does the average cocoa farmer earn a day? For context, the international poverty line is $190 a day. And I can help you with some multiple choice answers in case you're really not sure. It could be 78 cents a day, $1, $1.54, or $1.98. So whilst you're mulling over that and thinking about it, maybe Deborah, you could help the audience understand some of the challenges that you've faced as a cocoa farmer.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, everyone, again. Very glad to be here, and then also to talk about a few issues farmers are facing. Cocoa farming is a really interesting business to venture in, but it has a lot of challenges. So sometimes we, the youth, fear to enter into such business. One of the challenges I would like to first state is the pricing. You know, cocoa involves a whole lot of work. Before you can come out with a very quality cocoa, you have to do a lot of work reading, you have to prune, you have to distillate, looking at climate change, you have to do a lot of artificial pollination. You have to do a whole lot of management work on the cocoa before you can bring out the quality. And then when you are ready to sell, you realize the market price for our cocoa doesn't really fit the cost of production. And so the cocoa sector is really facing low pricing when it comes to our beans. We spend a lot on our farm to make sure we come out with standard, because as Fairtrade producers, we have our final consumers' health in our mind. And so we make sure whatever we are doing on our farm, it's quality. And so this low pricing, it's really causing our living income, causing a huge gap in the living income, because more of your money is going into production. And then at the end of the day, you don't get as much profit as you are supposed to get. So that is one challenge we are facing. And then the second is on climate change. Now we all know how this climate is working. But the fact is, we farmers are the front line, and we are really being hit with the impact on our productivity. And so it makes the work on cocoa more difficult and then more cost involving, because you have to involve a lot of techniques just to make sure you are resistant to the climate and its impact. And then also we look at lack of access to finance. We have a lot of financial institutions around, but because of how the cocoa sector is, it's very difficult for a farmer to access income just to support their farming as well. And so that is also one challenge. And so many of the farmers are still on that small piece. They cannot expand because they are not getting much income, and they are also not getting access to finance to also expand their productivity as well. And currently, we are also looking at high productivity costs. The price of cocoa is not going up, but we realize all the sectors around cocoa production, the inputs you need, other things you need on your farm, the prices keeps increasing day in and day out. But the final product, which is the cocoa, it's also not increasing. So currently, we are having a high cost of productivity. And so which is sometimes the women and then the youth is quite taking them away from the cocoa business. So these are the few challenges cocoa sector as a farmer or as a farmer group are facing in the region, especially West Africa. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. And so tough and so many challenges there. And I think for a lot of the audience who will be listening to this, they will never even begin to realize how much there sits behind a chocolate bar and all the difficulties that farmers face for them to be able to consume chocolate. So thank you very much for being able to share your insights there. For those doing the poll and wondering what the answer was, it's A. So cocoa farmers on average earn only 78 cents a day. That's not even half of what they would need to get to the international poverty line. And something Deborah spoke to there was the idea of a living income, which is what we're very passionate about at Tony's and Fairtrade, which is an income that would enable farmers to be able to save for the future and to meet all of their costs and to be able to have a sustainable cost of production for cocoa. And that's at an even higher level than the international poverty line. So you can really see the kind of stark challenge in the cocoa industry and what Tony's and Fairtrade are very committed to changing. So Nicola, coming to you, perhaps you can explain how some of the issues that Deborah mentioned, such as climate change, impact Tony's as a chocolate manufacturer.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tony's exists to eradicate illegal labour from the supply chain of cocoa. So that is the one area of the broken chocolate industry that we are really focused on. But to eradicate that, you have to address so many different parts of the industry, and all of the things that Deborah was just talking about there. It's a really complex system and supply chain, and you can't fix it with just one thing. So climate change is definitely causing an impact. We would say that we are, a social justice mission brand first, but you cannot fix the social justice side of things without also fixing the environmental justice side of things, because cocoa farmers are going to be some of the people that are most disproportionately affected by climate change. The income that they can make from their cocoa farms is limited to the size of the farm that they have, so they really have to be able to optimize the quality and the volume of the cocoa that they can make, and climate change is really hampering that. So lots of the stuff we focus on with the cooperatives we work with, which is also Asanafo, are about quality and productivity and kind of anti-climate change measures, because it directly impacts the volume, the quality that you can make, and therefore your income. And the root cause of illegal labour in the supply chain of cocoa is poverty, is farmers living way below that poverty line and not being able to earn a living income. And I'll kind of go into some of our sourcing principles and the model that we've kind of instilled a little bit later, but they're all interlinked and they're all interdependent, ultimately with that one goal of optimizing the number of cocoa farmers in West Africa that can earn a living income, and therefore reducing the amount of illegal labour that exists.
Great, thank you, Nicola. And that is exactly why we love partnering with Tony's. Taking it back to the audience for some more question time here. So Nicola has referenced there about climate change and having negative environmental impact for cocoa farmers. But do you know exactly how these changes are influencing the industry? So does it A, give periods of drought, B, unpredictable heavy rains, C, lead to an increase of crop diseases, D, lower and create unpredictable yields, or E, all of the above? So I'll give you a moment to digest and read through what the options are before I give you the answer. Okay, so you might have guessed it, but the answer was E, all of the above. So coming back to you, Deborah, obviously those consequences are really severe. Every single one of those options there is a really, really negative impact. Can you tell us a little bit more about how climate change specifically has affected you and your community?
Yeah, climate change for the past 4 years is becoming severe. So it's more like you're in this year, you think next year will be better, but next year becomes worse. And so one thing we are experiencing currently is low productivity. When you get to the major season, especially like just the past major season, October to January, where we were expecting to have a major yield, we had very less. So overall, I think we are expecting about 50% decrease in productivity this year. And this was because of the excessive rainfall we had last year from June to December. And so there were a lot of floodings in our farms. And so most of our port, when it arrived, it's very difficult for some of the farmers to even enter the farm to harvest. And so by the time the flood, the water is able to flow or dry up, you realize the ports are being destroyed. And then also because of the coldness this rain brought, we had a lot of disease infestation, the black pod disease, and then other things. And so when you harvest, you have to make sure you separate all these diseases, and then you only work with the healthy ones. And then also after the raining season, a very short time, there was this drought that really dried the ground, the soils. And so the older plants, even the older ones, were dying off. And then the small pods that need that good weather condition to mature were all becoming ripe. And so this year, we are really experiencing some low productivity. And then also climate change is reducing the survival rate of our young plants. And so it's strengthening the sustainability of the cocoa system. As a farmer, you look at it as a business where your children have to inherit. And then they can also inherit the 20-year-old plants you are doing now. You have to plant new ones. Now the soils are too dry, the microorganisms in the soils are being heated up and die. So when you plant, it's very difficult for the plant to survive. And so this survival rate is threatening sustainability as well. And then also we have the increased cost of productivity. Now you have to protect the small ones, you have to protect the older ones, you have to protect them from the sun, the water, pests and diseases. And so almost every time, if you have any other business, it's more like every time you have to be on your farm because anything can happen at any time. Any disease can start, and then if you are not able to control it very quickly, your entire farm will be covered. And so productivity costs is really becoming higher. And now if you want to plant, you can't just plant any other variety. You have to look for climate resilient ones. And that is also comes with a cost. And so our cost is increasing. And then climate change, lastly, I'll talk about is threatening the livelihood and food security of our farmers and of course the world at large. Livelihood because most of our farmers, they depend solely on the farming business to support their homes, their children in school, and then other things. So it's sort of their source of income. And now the profits they are to get from that, they are not getting it. So if in 10 years, nothing is being done, and then they lose their farm, it means their sources of livelihood is gone. And then once it goes, those of us in the cities, in Europe and other things who depend on these farmers for food, our chocolates, our coffee, our bananas, these are being threatened. So a time will come, we will not get the chocolate that we need, we will not get the banana, the sugar, the wine, and then other things. So these are a few threats we are having from climate change here currently.
Thank you, Deborah. And I think that final point really brings it home to the audience that there are very, very real supply chain risks here if we aren't able to kind of step in and solve some of these problems that, the products we consume on a daily basis, we cannot take for granted. They won't always be there if we're not able to step in and fix some of these challenges. The first poll spoke to incomes and how much does a cocoa farmer earn? And the second poll has kind of spoken to what is the impact of climate change for cocoa farming. David, maybe coming to you, how does the issue of poverty and what farmers earn link and relate through to climate change?
Thanks, Anna. Well, we've just heard a wide range of climate challenges from Deborah, and we know that as much as 30% of cocoa farmland in West Africa could be under threat by 2050 as a result of the climatic changes we've been hearing about. And we also know that these challenges are made worse by the financial challenges that many cocoa farmers experience. To adapt to climate change, farmers can rehabilitate their cocoa trees and plant new and adapted cocoa seedlings over a period of time. They can strengthen soil fertility through intercropping, a process where you plant other crops like chilies or cassava alongside your cocoa trees. Farmers can also take other steps like investing in shade trees to protect their cocoa trees, as we'll be hearing more about later. But all of these steps require knowledge, time, and finance to realize. In the context of rehabilitation work, for example, it can be several years before farmers are able to realize the financial benefits of new trees. And as Deborah's just mentioned, planting seedlings is no guarantee that the trees themselves will eventually flourish, and that comes with high risk and high cost. With low incomes, farmers are less well placed to respond to the challenges posed by climate change. And as Deborah mentioned, they're also less likely to gain access to credit, which would otherwise bridge the financial gap needed to invest in more sustainable farming. And these challenges can contribute to a negative spiral where farmers with low income are less well placed to protect their farms and so see their productivity decline as climate change worsens. And with worse productivity, income too declines, and so the pattern continues, as we've just been hearing from Deborah. There is also a second challenge which links farmers' income to climate change. For farmers who are struggling to make ends meet with the small plots of land they do have, they can be driven towards deforestation, which itself contributes to the wider climate crisis. So low farmer income does not just mean a threat to the viability of cocoa farmers today, but also poses a wider environmental challenge. These are both issues we should all pay attention to, which are both rooted in low farmer incomes And in this sense, at Fairtrade, we believe there can be no climate justice without trade justice. Supporting farmers to get a fair deal is a crucial part of our collective response to the changing climate that we see.
Thank you, David. And that really speaks to the heart of Fairtrade Fortnight and the climate justice campaign that we have, which is that the climate crisis is not fair. And anyone who joined Fair Focus on Wednesday, which you can catch up on demand, will have heard that 17 people in Côte d'Ivoire have the same carbon footprint as one person in the UK. And yet, as we've heard from Deborah, the impact of climate change in West Africa is huge and really affecting people on already low incomes. So it's not a fair climate crisis. It's a big challenge, and there's a lot that's wrong with the cocoa industry and the way that we consume chocolate, but there are also initiatives to try and make it right. So, Nicola, coming to you, could you tell us a little bit about what it is that Fairtrade and Tony's are doing to help improve the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of alluded to it earlier, but we have created a model, which is our 5 sourcing principles. And we believe that when these 5 sourcing principles are in place in your supply chain, when you're buying cocoa from West Africa, you have the best chance of eradicating illegal labor from your supply chain, because you're addressing the very root cause of the problem and the whole system at once. Whereas lots of the big chocolate companies might address some of it in part of their supply chain. You have to address all of it in your entire supply chain to really fix such a broken system. So our 5 sourcing principles starts with full traceability. So most big chocolate companies that source from West Africa will source from a big anonymous pile of cocoa. So if you think of it as like a big cocoa mountain, they're on one side of it, and the cocoa farmers and the farms are on the other side of it, and they can't see through that big mountain of cocoa. They don't know where the cocoa is coming from. They don't know the conditions under which it's been farmed, and it's bought really as a commodity, because they're profit-making companies that want to maximize their profit and therefore keep the price of cocoa really, really low. So fixing the traceability issue is step 1 and the fundamental thing that you need to have to be able to add anything else on top. So at Tony's, we have 100% traceability from our cocoa farms and the cooperatives that we source from all the way to our bar. We track it with some fancy technology called our bean tracker, so we can see at any time where the sacks of cocoa are. The cocoa farmers themselves, input data, and then we can track it across the ocean to Belgium, where it's made into our liquid chocolate and our bars, and then we know when to release the premiums that go back to the farmers. So traceability is crucial. And the second one is paying a higher price. So Deborah mentioned it, the farmers have to work incredibly hard to make their cocoa, and they are currently not paid enough for that. And we'll come on and talk a little bit more detail on that pricing shortly. But paying a higher price, and a price that enables farmers to earn a living income, which isn't even, a living income is the very basic that you need to run your farm, to look after your family, to feed and clothe your family. So it's not even a lot of money, but earning a living income should be the absolute minimum. So paying a higher price is the second one. And then the third and fourth sourcing principles are kind of very closely linked. So that is working with farmer cooperatives, because we believe that farmers are in cooperatives, they're stronger, they're more powerful, they have more buying power, they're able to professionalize quicker. And we work with the cooperatives we source from for at least 5 years. Largely it's longer, but we give them that kind of income security of they know they will be selling their cocoa to Tony's at a higher price for at least 5 years, which means they can invest ahead. So they can invest if they need to replace farming equipment, if they want to use better pesticides, if they want to plant cocoa trees that take at least 5 years to bear fruit. They've got that regular income coming in at the living income reference price. And then the final one is productivity and quality, which we talked about, which is also relevant in terms of the climate change piece. So all 5 sourcing principles, if you think of it like a chocolate cake, you have to have every single bit of the recipe in there. If you take one of them out, it's not going to be a very tasty cake. So we want all big chocolate companies to adopt our sourcing principles, and we give that away for free. It's not a secret. We have it on our platform called Tony's Open Chain, which is an open source platform for any chocolate company or company that sources cocoa can take those trade secrets and replicate us, because ultimately we want to lose our USP. We do not want to be special in the industry with kind of sourcing that way, and therefore eradicating illegal labor from our supply chain. So yeah, that's a little bit more about what we're doing.
Amazing. Thank you, Nicola. Very impressive. And the audience have had a poll ongoing whilst you've been speaking. and hopefully they've got the answers right from what you've been saying. So the question was, what do Tonys pay for the cocoa farmers they work with? So A is whatever the market price is, and I don't know how many of you are aware in the audience that cocoa is traded as a global commodity, so it does fluctuate according to its market price. B, the Fairtrade minimum price, which is the price we set, which is an absolute minimum, and it kicks in when the market price is lower, and only then if the market price is higher, you have to pay that. Plus the Fairtrade premium for the cooperative. So that's the extra sum of money that goes back to cooperatives with Fairtrade chocolate, and the cooperatives are free to spend that as they wish, and they will vote and decide how to do that. Is it C, the Fairtrade minimum price plus the Fairtrade premium for the cooperatives and a cooperative fee and the Tonys premium? Or is it D, the living income reference price, which is the price that enables farmers to earn a living income? So this is calculated on what a farmer would need to sell their cocoa at to be able to receive a living income. And hopefully you will have picked up through Nicola's answer that the correct response was in fact C and D. So a very impressive list of prices that they are paying and commitments that they have made. So maybe going back to you, Nicola, now to really bring that to life and explain to the audience what that means and how it works.
Yeah, so I don't want to kind of overcomplicate it, but it is a very complicated system. You just explained it. Yeah, there's so many different levels in there, but ultimately, we think farmers should be able to earn a living income. So together with Fairtrade, we've created the living income model and set what we believe should be the living income reference price. So the price that cocoa farmers should be paid per tonne of cocoa to enable them to get to that living income. But the living income model itself, includes how big your family size is, how big your farm is. There's lots of different elements within that. So we pay exactly that. We pay the farm gate price, we pay the Fairtrade premium, we pay the co-op fee, the Fairtrade minimum price, and then we bridge the gap to that living income reference price with the Tonys premium. So it's a voluntary premium that we pay above and beyond what the Fairtrade minimum is, because we believe that all farmers should be able to earn the living income reference price. And ultimately the profits in the chocolate industry aren't fairly divided, they're unequally divided, and that's why our bars are unequally divided. So we, I think last year spent an additional €3 million or more than that on voluntary premiums. And that kind of sounds strange to a lot of companies, kind of giving away more money than you have to, but we're an impact company that makes chocolate and not a chocolate company that makes impact. I think it's an important thing for people to understand about fair trade as well, that fair trade is a certification, and it is you set a minimum price, but it is absolutely the company's responsibility to take full responsibility for their supply chain, their traceability. Having the fair trade logo on your bars is not the end point. It should be like a great start, and you need to go further to share the profits in your supply chain more equally to enable farmers to earn a living income. So yeah, we're leading the way and showing that you can be a profitable, successful, market leading, brand leading, delicious chocolate brand whilst paying farmers that living income reference price and not exploiting people at the start of the supply chain.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nicola. And it's so nice to be able to see it kind of brought to life like that. And, an easy choice for consumers to make is to choose Tonys Chocolonely when they want to choose ethical chocolate, knowing that's what's being paid back to the supply chain. I mean, maybe to continue the theme of bringing it to life and helping the audience kind of really understand what this looks like and how they can be part of it. Deborah, maybe you could kind of talk through, you're part of a fair trade cooperative that supplies Tonys. What is the difference you've seen since joining the cooperative? What does this really look like for you?
Working with Fairtrade and Tonys, it's really exciting because always they try, I always say they understand how farming is in Africa, the challenges farmers go through. And so they always try as much as possible to provide the needed support to ensure that farmers get the needed support to become more comfortable with what they are doing and then their business. So as Fairtrade producers, I am lucky because where my parents are, they are not Fairtrade certified. So most of the time I do compare their system with my system. So as Fairtrade certified, I realized one of the things we always get is training and then information sharing. looking at the current farming system that we are in with the climate change and other things, it's very important that farmers are always up to date with what is happening, what new method is in place to do. And that is what we get as Fairtrade farmers. And so always we have the Fairtrade staff on field. They train, we the lead trainers to train our farmers to make sure they are more aware. And then also with the Fairtrade market and then the Fairtrade premium, the union and our society, we have a lot of income to invest into our community. I think one of the challenges I forgot to mention is the community system in the farming environment. So you realize when you enter a farming community, all the social amenities that makes a community a happy place for a person to live is not available. And so with the Fairtrade premium, you're able to provide a better school infrastructures for our community. We're able to support the children in school, provide our community with good drinking waters, and a whole lot of projects as a union or as a cooperative. And then those who are not Fairtrade certified are not benefiting from it. And then also currently with the Fairtrade carbon benefit, it's giving farmers that eager to plant, because earlier you plant and then you realize you have no authority on the tree on your farm. But now with the carbon benefit, you realize if you get a good or improved cook stove at the end of season, you're going to benefit from it as well. So that is also helping. And then with the Fairtrade project, the Dignity for Climate Change, which is encouraging farmers to do dynamic agroforestry, where we can plant a whole lot of food crops on the same farm, which each other supporting with shade and other things. At the end of the season, you always get food for the family and then some for the market. I think that is also something that is really helping the union as well. And then a lot of livelihood programs have been introduced by Fairtrade: soap making, bread making, developing the youth skills and other things. For the past 9 years that we joined Fairtrade, these are the things they are doing. We partnership Tony's in 2019, and the journey with them has been amazing, with their higher premiums every year. And so farmers are really glad to get up in the day and go to the farm and then know that they are partners to an impact company that is ready to make impact in their life. So the higher premium is really helping farmers. And then also the fact that Tony's realized in the cocoa system in West Africa, we have this whole child labor and slavery in it, and then they are not just turning away, but they are supporting the cooperative to remediate all incidents of child labor and then abuse cases. So they have the CLMRS, the child labor monitoring and remediation system with ICI and Fairtrade, which is effectively going on. Currently, we've remediated about 780 children that we are happy to see them always in school and doing what a child is supposed to do. So that is also one benefit we are getting from Tony's. And then also the productivity enhancement program, where initially we meet farmers, we train them, you know, the age limit is also quite up. So sometimes when you train them, they have the urge to do what you've trained them to do, but because of their age limit, sometimes they do forget other things. They cannot perform it, especially with pruning and then other strength demanding activities. And so with their productivity enhancement, we have what we call farm coaches, youth that are being coaching the farmers direct one-on-one. And so we realize that is also something that is really enhancing our productivity. And also a lot of community development projects are ongoing. From last year, just about 2 weeks ago, we're able to commission 2 schools, which was really fantastic. And so there are a lot of projects, community projects coming on the way that Tony is helping SUNAFO, not just SUNAFO, but the other unions they are working with. So thank you so much, Tony, and then thank you, Fairtrade. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you, Deborah. And that really helps bring to life what all of those extra payments we've just referenced, what they really mean. And for those in the audience who are wondering, you know, Deborah's referred to a few extra pieces there around trainings received. And there's, when the Fairtrade mark is on pack on a chocolate bar, that means a business has paid what we call a license fee into the Fairtrade system to be able to carry that mark. And that's what we're able to use to reinvest into trainings for farmers and outreach support and teams on the ground to be there. So when you're choosing Fairtrade chocolate and you're choosing Tony's, it doesn't just come with a promise of price, it also comes with this extra support to farmers to really help them. So we know that Tony's and Fairtrade are making a real difference to farmers' lives. David, coming to you, we've talked about how Fairtrade supports farmers to get better incomes and improve their lives. And Deborah's talked a little bit about this, but maybe you could explain about how Fairtrade is supporting them to face climate change specifically.
Perfect, thanks, Anna. Yeah, so Fairtrade supports farmers to face climate change in a range of different ways, and I'm going to touch on just 3 of them here. We've got the Fairtrade standards, we've got Fairtrade sales, and we've got Fairtrade campaigns. So let's start with Fairtrade standards. The Fairtrade standard sets out a series of conditions for farming groups to align with to improve their environmental performance and to tackle complex social challenges like child labour. In relation to climate change, the Fairtrade standard helps farmers protect forests and encourage farmers to invest in agroforestry, including the planting of shade trees. Shade trees can help protect cocoa trees in the face of increasing temperatures and can also preserve soil fertility. And as you've just mentioned, Anna, we provide specialist trainings to farmers and their cooperatives to help them to advance in line with the Fairtrade standards. Last year, our support programme reached over 160,000 farmers with trainings including climate-smart agricultural services, which help farmers manage their trees and natural resources like water in ways which are matched to the changing climatic conditions they face. Beyond Fairtrade standards, businesses choosing to source cocoa on Fairtrade terms are helping to improve farmer incomes and generating the Fairtrade premium, which farmers can choose to invest into climate adaptation and mitigation measures. And finally, as you will have seen across Fairtrade Fortnight this year and all years, Fairtrade is not just a certification scheme, we're a movement for change and justice, including climate justice. We believe that farmers like Deborah are their own best advocates and are best placed to articulate both the challenges they face and the solutions which would help them most. So last year at COP26, we supported a range of farmers to attend to tell their story to political and business decision makers, and we called on governments to stick to their commitment of $100 billion a year of climate finance to help farmers respond to the impacts of climate change. We also have links into UK government and are actively seeking change in domestic as well as international policy. We'll be continuing to work with farmers and the businesses that buy from them to advocate for fairer finance and investment at this year's COP27 and across our campaigns work. And the great news is it's free to join and support our campaigning work, whoever you are and wherever you are. And that's something we'll come into further detail on at the end of this quiz.
Amazing. Thank you, David. I literally work for Fairtrade and I still feel super re-inspired to get behind the movement all over again. So thank you for that. This is our last question before the chocolate tasting, but if anyone in the audience is particularly hungry, please do graze as we discuss these important topics. Because Nicola, it would be really great to hear from you and your perspectives as an international chocolate company. You will have your own environmental footprint, and it would be great to hear from you what Tony's are doing to address climate change and reduce your impact.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, we're social justice first, but absolutely environmental justice is part of that. And it's something that we're really conscious of. We're really aware of our carbon footprint, and we know exactly, the most energy, the bar that consumes the most energy, which is our white chocolate, and the one that consumes the least energy, which is the dark almond sea salt, which I think you have in your chocolate tasting packs there. And we are proudly CO2 neutral as of 2019. So we offset all of the carbon that we emit through a few different programs. So one of them is called Just Dig It. And that is an amazing organization that regreens dry, arid land in various areas in Africa. And they literally it's amazing to go on their website and look at the pictures of what happens, but this kind of orange land over a couple of years goes completely green and becomes a carbon sink. So literally kind of pulling carbon out of the air and employing local people as well, which is incredible. So we use them to offset. We also offset all of the costs of any shipping, so shipping our beans and our cocoa butter and also our products to America with a company called Good Shipping who uses biofuel. And another nice example is a few years back, we used to ship cocoa beans to Belgium to make our cocoa butter, but now we actually make the cocoa butter in Abidjan, and then we ship the cocoa butter rather than the beans. So we get a lot more into the same size tanks, which reduces the carbon footprint of the cocoa butter dramatically, and again kind of brings more income into Abidjan rather than having it in Belgium. So constantly looking for ways for us to not only offset but reduce that carbon footprint, but it is very challenging. The biggest emitter we have in our supply chain is our milk powder. That is a really tricky one to try and, we've been working on it for years to try and find a better milk powder that doesn't have such a big carbon footprint. But yeah, all of our packaging, we're trying to remove, pretty much have removed all plastic from our supply chain as well. Everything, generally, we try and get it to be recyclable and as thin as possible and as pure as possible, so it can be fully recycled or use recycled materials where possible. So yeah, there's loads of great examples of things we're doing to reduce our environmental impact. But any FMCG, consumer packaged goods company, it's always going to be a problem, and we're not perfect, but we're doing as much as we can and trying to improve every year.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nicola. And I hope for anyone in the audience who works for a business, feels inspired by that. Lots of businesses are struggling to map their carbon footprint, let alone bring it to net zero. So very impressive efforts there from Tony's. You are now invited to eat your chocolate. Thank you for listening through to the panel piece. And I hope you've got all of your bars in front of you. Whilst you are munching away on your delicious Tony's, we have one last question for you, which is the Tony's all-time favorite is the caramel sea salt bar, but can you guess how many cocoa beans are in each of those bars? So whilst you're eating that, I'll let you mull over that question. And maybe whilst everyone's eating, Nicola, just as a super quick question to you, I often get asked about the way that a Tony's bar is uneven chunks. Many of my family members have expressed surprise that it doesn't break off evenly, but maybe you could just tell the audience why that is as they're working through their own chocolate bars.
Yeah, we use our bars as the first touch point for people to understand the problems in the industry. So the first step is knowing there's a problem, because only when you're conscious and a conscious consumer can you then make a more informed choice. So when you open up our bars, you'll see that they are unequally divided, and that is because the profits in the chocolate industry are unequally divided. So cocoa farmers get a really small piece of the pie, the big chocolate companies get a really big piece, and it's the same with our bars. Somebody's always going to get the corner piece, someone's always going to get the coveted big Tony's piece that I think lots of families fight over. And also we've hidden the map of West Africa in the bottom left corner, so that includes Ivory Coast and Ghana, the two countries that we source from, and the west of West Africa as well. And all of our products we try and make unequally divided as a nod to that issue in the industry. And also on the inside of our wrappers, make sure you give them a read too, because it will always tell you a bit more information about our mission.
Love that. I didn't know that about West Africa in the corner, so I'm going home with a new fact too. Hopefully lots of the audience will also now be explaining to all of their friends about the unevenly distributed bar. And on the theme of fun facts, hope you all got that right, but the answer was C. So it was 120 beans that went there. And many people will know Tony's for their brilliant Advent stunt as well, with the missing piece as a real reminder about inequality. So definitely something you do really well at Tony's on that. Whilst we are finishing up and whilst everyone's eating their chocolate and enjoying themselves at home, I'll just go to each of our panelists with the same question for us to end on. And for those who might be feeling really inspired at home, who are feeling, they've really understood for the first time, what is the challenge for a cocoa farmer? What are the issues in this industry? How Fairtrade and Tony's might help? How can they do more to contribute to a more equal cocoa supply chain? What is the call to action for those who are tuning in? So maybe, David, we can go to you first.
Great, thanks, Anna. Well, I think the great news is there's many ways that people can choose to bring about change within cocoa supply chains. Of course, first and foremost, you can buy Fairtrade chocolate products like Tony's, but I'll leave Nicola to describe the full detail of that. Beyond this, there are other steps you can take, two of which include joining a Fairtrade group and being an active campaigner online. As we discussed earlier, Fairtrade is a movement for trade and climate justice. We run a wide range of campaigning groups, including Fairtrade towns, schools, universities, and places of worship. The groups push for change in their respective local areas, encouraging institutions to switch their purchasing practices towards Fairtrade and receiving information on our latest campaigning work whether that's linked to COP, UK climate policy, or other areas where you as an individual or a group can play a direct role in signing petitions, contacting your MP, or attending events. And you can find out more about joining a Fairtrade group through our website. Secondly, we can all be active online to better understand and challenge the work the chocolate industry is undertaking to push for change. You can visit websites like the Voice Network, who monitor change at an industry level and push for reforms, including higher prices for cocoa farmers, which, as we've heard today, are so important and so needed. When you find an article or a petition which speaks to you, share these with your friends, get them involved too, and make direct contact with chocolate making businesses to understand what they're already doing and push them to go further. And I think overall, we can all play a role in reminding people, companies, and institutions of the climate crisis facing cocoa farmers and play a positive role in both raising awareness and taking positive action.
Amazing. Thank you so much, David. Nicola, going to you.
Yeah, for me, it's really simple. It's kind of understanding that none of us can be perfect all of the time, but if we all just choose a bit more consciously more of the time, collectively, that can have a really massive impact. And a really easy way to do that is choosing fair trade products. It couldn't be easier because every single supermarket has an amazing range. And then secondly, I would just ask people to share our chocolate and share our story, because that is the only way, like I said, by building awareness that there even is a problem in the chocolate industry, that people can become aware and choose more consciously. And we've made it really easy to share that story with a delicious chocolate bar. So buy someone a bar of Tony's, tell them about the unequally divided bar, use that as your dinner party story, and you'll be helping us fuel our mission.
Amazing. Thank you, Nicola. And I feel like thanks to your excellent marketing work here in the UK, you're stocked nearly everywhere now. Is that right?
Yeah, you can get us in Sainsbury's, Waitrose, on Ocado, in Tesco's, loads of amazing independent stores who have exclusive bars that you won't get in the supermarkets as well. And yeah, more coming soon.
Love that. Not only is that very impressive, but also makes it super easy for everyone at home to be able to choose Fairtrade and Tony's no matter where you shop. So last but certainly not least, Deborah, over to you. What would be your final ask of our audience?
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank everybody that support the Fairtrade and then Tony's brand. Farmers are seeing a new era of farming because you make that choice to choose Fairtrade products. And so don't stop, keep buying Fairtrade products, be the ambassador, keep talking about Fairtrade. Talk about Tony's, talk about the open chain, talk about how Fairtrade and Tony's is helping farmers. And then let's keep on this. For us, we know once our minds, we are very conscious that everything we take in doesn't have a darker side, then there will be a bright future for us and for the cocoa industry. So don't stop eating Tony's, do it every day. Don't worry about the health issues, everything will be and keep talking about Fairtrade. So thank you, Fairtrade, and thank you, everyone. So yeah, thanks.
Amazing. Thank you, Deborah. And it doesn't even feel like a very hard ask to ask everyone to eat Tony's, given it's so delicious. We have time for a couple more questions. So I'm very pleased to be able to share those on. The first one is, Nicola, what do you think the future of the chocolate industry looks like?
Yeah, good question. The chocolate industry is going to continue to grow. It's, I think, $110 billion industry now, continuing to grow every single year. And unfortunately, that means that the problems in the industry don't get any easier to solve. It can sometimes feel like one step forward, two step back. But that's why our model to change the industry has, three clear pillars. And that is about creating awareness, leading by example and showing, that model exists to change the industry. But then the third one is the most crucial one, which is inspiring to act. We exist to inspire consumers to choose differently. We encourage retailers to source differently and to ask questions of everybody in their supply chain who buys cocoa. And we also are, putting lobbying pressure on governments to change legislation as well. And only when we have all of those things happening and all of that downward pressure, will the big chocolate companies, even consider changing the way that they source, because you have to impact their profits for them to want to change how they do things. So we're really optimistic. We are incredibly passionate and ambitious. Maybe naive, but that's, you know, I think you've got to have a healthy dose of naivety sometimes with these things, but we are very optimistic for the future of the chocolate industry, but it's definitely not going to be an overnight change, but we're making progress.
Amazing, and definitely a role for everyone to play. So yeah, for those listening in, there is a valuable role for you at home too. There's more you can do for this. Deborah, coming to you, maybe you could just explain a little bit about, you know, what life is like for you as a cocoa farmer in Ghana, and what led you to becoming part of the cocoa industry, given that it has got all of these challenges and it's not an easy job.
Yeah, I was born into the cocoa family. So my dad, my mom, especially my dad, is into cocoa production from childhood. And so when we were young, we used to go to farm. But at a point, we realized they weren't getting anything from it, because we, as children, we had to struggle before we get our school fees and other needs. And so along the line, the idea of following their footsteps changed. So I wanted to be into the sciences, to be a nurse or a doctor, because I knew that was where I can get money from. But after school, after my first degree, I started working, and then I joined SUNAFO, one of their annual meetings. Then I realized that there's a change, there's a difference between the farming I'm hearing of and then what I've experienced earlier. And so a little into what, then I got to know about Fairtrade, and then how Fairtrade is supporting this family. So a year later, when I started working with them, fortunate enough to work permanently with them, then I decided to give it a try. It was a try, but now I'm very much interested to be called a farmer. Yeah, the life of a farmer, I always say, is in two phases, for especially the graduate ones like me. When you meet your colleagues from school, they still don't understand why after this long years, you still want to be called a farmer, you still want to go into that line, because there are better jobs in the city, and you know, farmers are already in the rural areas. So at that end of life, it's quite difficult, because they don't understand. You have to try and explain to them how farming has changed, how they need to experience another thing. But when you get back to our farming system, our local system, where farming is very common, I think it's fun, because the older ones are glad to see us getting involved in the farming as well. So I remember just the last one, I traveled because I was a farmer. So when I was traveling outside the country, I called my mom, I'm traveling. And she was like, oh, after paying all these school fees, you are finally traveling. I was like, no, I'm not traveling because of my school. I'm traveling because I'm a farmer. And she was surprised. And so life as a farmer is difficult, but sometimes when you have other sources of income, it becomes less difficult as well, because there are other things you can depend on as well. Yeah, thank you.
Amazing, thank you, Deborah. And I think you've spoken to such an important topic there too, and something you really actively, I know, try to address through all of your work with the youth committees and things, is that a challenge in the cocoa industry with really low incomes is there's no incentive for young people to go in and be a cocoa farmer. It's very, very hard work, and if they're not going to get a fair price back for it, there's little reason they want to do it. So it just really goes to show that there's another reason why we need to pay a fair price for our cocoa. It's not just to help battle climate change, which also is threatening the future supply of chocolate, but also there will be no farmers there to go and pick and harvest and grow your cocoa, which is an incredibly hard job if we're not prepared in the market to pay them a fair price to do that. And so, Deborah, you're an amazing ambassador on behalf of Fairtrade Africa and all of these other networks you sit in to show young people that it can be a really good career if you are able to do it with Fairtrade and with Tony's. So yeah, huge admiration and respect to you for that, because that is how the chocolate industry will continue to provide cocoa to the world. So a big thank you to you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to work with Fairtrade.
I think that probably brings us to our conclusion. It's nearly 5 o'clock. And so, you know, I just want to say a massive, massive thank you to our panelists for joining. It's been fantastic to have you here today with us, particularly Deborah joining from Ghana. Thank you so much for the effort. And you've answered some really important questions that I hope the audience has really appreciated getting more insights and learnings into. I think we can all agree it's been fascinating. I found it really, really interesting for one. So thank you for sharing your insights and experiences. And this is absolutely critical to the future of chocolate and to cocoa, and to ensure that we can continue to enjoy this product. As Nicola said, raising awareness is the first step. So please go out there and tell your friends and your family what you learned today and why it's important, and choose Fairtrade and Tony's when you're shopping. To everyone who has watched this afternoon, thank you for your support. As mentioned earlier, all of the events from Fairtrade Fortnight are on demand on our website. And if you have any more questions or interest for more information, Tony's has lots and lots of information on their website, very transparent company with lots out there. And similarly for Fairtrade, we have a lot there. We have the Fortnight page in particular. So if you want to learn more about what we've been doing this Fairtrade Fortnight and get involved, please do head to the website. Once again, a massive thanks. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to the audience. We hope you've really, really enjoyed your chocolate. Please go on social media. Do tag Fairtrade, do tag Tony's. Let us know what you thought. Let us know your favorite flavor. Did you get the questions to the answers to the questions right? How did you score? We'd love to hear from you. So big thanks. And yeah,